Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to do a painting, but first we're going to make some backgrounds. I'm using a 9" by 12" gel plate. I think this is my favorite size, honestly the most versatile size, because it's so convenient to be able to print edge to edge on a 9 by 12 piece of paper, and that seems to be the most popular size. This one's from Joggles. I believe Gel Press makes their plates, but I recommend Joggles, Gel Press, Jelly Arts, and Gel Elf if you're looking for gel plates. Those all work really well. I'm putting out a very thin layer of black acrylic paint. This is actually Gel Elf's black acrylic paint meant for magazine transfers, and I'm just throwing on a sheet of magazine. Now I went when I was at the Paris airport a couple months ago. I snagged some of these free magazines because I thought that this will be cool because I can have some French text in there, and it'll be kind of fancy. It's probably not fancy to anybody that speaks French fluently. They're probably like, why is she using that? It's just going to be some texture in the background. Now, if you don't have a gel plate and you want to do a very similar background, what you can do is you can paint some black acrylic paint onto a brayer, or brayer up a script ink, like a stamp, and just kind of very loosely stamp around so you don't get a perfect impression. Now, the thing when you're doing a gel print versus doing work on paper directly is the order of operations. So the way that I'm putting stuff down here on the plate, the things I put down first are going to show up on the front of the, or going to be dominant on the print. With the paper, the things I put on the paper first will be kind of in the background, will be pushed back. So it's kind of like you're working back to front on paper, but you're working front to back on a gel plate, if that makes sense. I'm using pan pastels, the metallics and the pearlescents here. This works so well on a gel plate. They're so pigmented that it puts down a ton of color. Now I can do the same thing on the paper. On the paper, I will need to do something to help that pastel stick. So either press a embossing pad through my stencil to make it kind of sticky. Another thing you can do is spray some water through your stencil, and that will help it, like I just did right there, sprayed some water, that will help it grab the pastel. You still are going to need something on top of that to keep it from rubbing off. That's just the nature of the beast. When you're doing this on a gel plate, the acrylic paint we put on top fixes it to the paper, which is neat. It doesn't rub off in your hands at all. So another win for the gel plate. I'm not saying you need to have a gel plate. Obviously, you can get really cool backgrounds done in so many different ways, but I really enjoy it. And the other thing I wanted to mention using a gel plate is that it does not have to be a big ordeal. Like, I'm just doing this on my regular table, wearing my regular clothes. I'm not making a huge mess. But I know a lot of times if I'm going to do gel printing, I feel like I need to make a whole day of it. I need to make a ton of backgrounds, make it worth my while of getting the mess out. But you don't really have to get that much stuff out. You don't have to make a big mess. You can just do one print and call it good. And yeah, I used a variety of different gel press colors and mediums there. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm in pan pastel. Now what I'm going to do is add a little bit of acrylic paint onto my plate here. These are the soft body Meeden acrylic paints. I'm really enjoying these for gel printing because they're matte and they have a very convenient nozzle for putting some of the paint out, which is wonderful. Now I am going to pull off some of that color from the plate onto that paper that I was using for another background. I love how that looks. Now obviously you do need a gel plate for that, but you wouldn't have to. You could put the stencil down and sponge on the paint onto the paper. But I figured why waste that? I can do it all in one step here. But that's what you would do if you didn't have a gel plate and you wanted to get that sort of effect. By the way, if you like this project, I have a real-time version of this as well as the upcoming project we're going to get into in Critique Club. It is $7.50 a month, and you can have access to all of the past Critique Club tutorials, monthly prompts, and I do add 2 new tutorials every month. Plus, you can upload your work for feedback. So I think it's a good value for money. It's good value for money. And yeah, check it out. Link in the video description. You can see if it's for you. And yeah, on with the tutorial. Now I am brayering on some yellow ochre and pink with a little bit of matte medium because I wanted to thin it out a little bit so it would be a little bit more sheer, because I am doing this on a toned paper and I do want some of the toned paper to show through. And this is Strathmore Tone Tan Mixed Media paper, which is one of my favorite papers. It's such a good value. I usually get the 9 by 12 pads and the 11 by 14 pads. I use the 9 by 12 probably more than anything. Oh, I have the 6 by 9 pads too. Those are really handy. So it comes in all those different sizes. Now you can also bray or color through stencils onto your cardstock or your mixed media paper if you don't have a gel print and you just gel printing plate and you want to have, you know, some of that kind of artsy funky look. You know, there's so many different ways to do this. Look at that. It didn't even buckle or anything. You can kind of peek through and see what you have on the back side from your gel plate. I'm pulling the plate off the paper so it doesn't warp, and that is our background that we're going to work on. Now, I love this background, and sometimes when you have a background that you love, it's really hard to work on it because you know you're going to cover it up. At first I thought I was going to do a portrait, but then I was thinking, you know, the way the starburst kind of comes out with those dots, I thought maybe a landscape would actually work a little bit better for this, and then I could let more of the background kind of show through. Because if I wanted to do a portrait, it was going to kind of cover up those words in the center that you can kind of see, and I kind of wanted some of those to still show through. Here's a tip for taping your paper down so you don't lose any of your real estate. And I saw this from Monet Cafe on YouTube. So what you do is you tape to the back of your paper, then you lay that down on your surface, and then you tape to the tape. Okay, so you're not taping the front of that paper at all. And then when you remove the masking tape, which this is masking tape, so you do want to remove it when you're done painting and not let it sit on there because masking tape can be acidic and leave nasty acids behind. But that allows you to get to all of the paper. And that way you have a little bit more versatility when you go to frame it because you don't have to, you're not going to lose anything on the edge. So I started off by putting in the horizon line with some blue and then a little bit of pink above it for that kind of atmospheric clouds. And I was kind of dancing around some of the areas in the background I wanted to show through. Now I'm using these eye crayon pastels because they're not super opaque. They're not as opaque as my Neocolor 2s or my Lyras. So I thought that that would allow me to have more show through. They're also inexpensive, so I don't have to feel precious about them, which I think is important. If you ever feel like, oh, I can't break this crayon because it was an expensive crayon, you know, get yourself a cheap set and play with those. And these were a pretty cheap set at the time I bought them. I think they're around $1 a stick in those sets on Amazon. I did end up combining them into one tin because it's just more convenient that way. But just going in and sketching. Now, the wonderful thing about a page like this, where I picked everything up with the acrylic paint, if I wanted to, I could scrub these crayons off and start again. And let me tell you, that thought crossed my mind. I actually woke up last night, middle of the night, I painted this yesterday, and I thought, maybe I'll just scrub all of that off and start again. Because it would leave the gel printed part behind. But you know what? Don't judge your painting too soon. Give it time. Give it time, because you may like it in a few days, or something might come to you in a couple days of how you can improve it that didn't present itself when you were getting frustrated with it. And I was frustrated with this. At first I really liked it. I loved the sketchy look of it, but then I think I was getting a little nervous, like, well, this isn't my normal style. This looks very amateurish. I was really judging myself hardly when I've been judging myself a lot this week. I've had kind of every once in a while we all have them. I think we all do, unless you're some superhuman, well-adjusted artist. You have these times where you're just judging everything you do harshly, very harshly. You're judging how you spend your time. You're judging what materials you're using. You're judging what subjects you're painting. You're judging, you know, the outcome of your work, and you're feeling like you're wasting your time because you're not creating the work that you should be creating. And I say should with air quotes because, you know, you need to experiment. If you don't experiment as an artist, then you are going to atrophy and you're going to hate it. You're going to hate making art if you never give yourself a chance to experiment. And when you make your living from your art, then you don't have as much time to experiment. I know it sounds so ironic because you're spending all this time doing art, but if you're spending a lot of your time not doing art things when you do it for a living. You're spending a lot of times doing like computer stuff, doing, you know, stuff to your website, promoting things rather than actually experimenting and putting that time in to see what happens. Now in the summer, I spend a lot more time experimenting because when I go out plein air painting, I don't film it. So I'm just out there painting and I'm not monetizing that at all. And it's really quite wonderful. In the winter, I feel like I need to take advantage, and I need to make the most of every time I sit down at the table, or I stand at the easel. I need to make the most of it. And when something doesn't turn out, especially if you're kind of under a deadline, it can be so frustrating because maybe you only had one day to finish this project, and then the day is done and it's 10 p.m. at night and you're still working on it and you're not happy with anything you're making, and then you just start judging yourself. And I think everybody goes through that. Even if you're not trying to make a living from your art, I think you still will judge that because you have other things competing for your time. You have a family, you have a job, you have sleep, you have exercise, you have all those things that you should be doing, that you need to do, that are important, and you're trying to squeeze in the art time. And when the art's not happening the way you want it to happen, it can be so frustrating, and it can just make you feel like, why did I bother? You know, I could have just vegged out and watched a TV show or watched a movie or spent time with my family or done this or done that. And it's it can be so frustrating. Here I'm just double checking my horizon line because it felt like it was crooked, but actually it wasn't crooked. I don't know why. I think maybe the pattern on the print was throwing me off a little bit. But then I was looking at this and I'm like, oh, you know what's really bugging me about this? It's the little roof line behind the middle dome there. That dome in the center of the paper is lining up with that roof line behind it. And that's what I think was really bothering me about the composition in this. I needed to stagger it out a little bit more. I guess I did stagger it out a little bit more by this point, but that was definitely something that was bothering me. I didn't put the tree in. I wasn't really that keen on the tree. Maybe it would have helped. Maybe it would have helped frame things, but in any event, I decided to leave it out. You can let me know what you think, if the tree should have gone in. It probably would have helped create a frame and create some scale. I don't know. You know, we just get kind of in our heads a little bit sometimes, and it can be really tough to objectively look at our work and decide what it needs. I like how I'm building up the saturation here. I'm kind of bummed that I'm covering up so much of the print, because I feel like I lost that kind of starburst in the middle, which is the reason why I wanted to do a landscape, because I thought that would kind of pull you into the horizon a little bit and give you a little bit of depth. But then I was thinking I kind of lost that. So I don't know. I also felt like I needed some more cool tones in the sky, so I went in with a little more crayon. You can definitely still see the patterns back there, but I feel like I lost some of the nuance in the print, which obviously that's going to happen when you paint over a print. But yeah, I'm just persevering. At this point, I think I was feeling, well, I'm gonna play because I'm not happy with it, so I might as well keep on going until I like it. And then I thought, what happens if I use a little bit of water? Well, what happens if you use a little bit of water is it just washes it off of this background, because the background is a nice thin coating of acrylic, which is basically plastic, which allows you to wipe all that stuff off, which can be good or can be bad, depending on what the effect you're going for and how you look at it. So I was thinking, oh, I could remove some of this color and let some of the pattern come through. I could smooth out some of the texture of the crayon if I didn't like it. But then I was thinking, oh no, now I'm making it too simplistic because I'm losing the crayon marks, and I liked the crayon marks. And the reason I went with the crayons to begin with was that I wanted those sketchy marks. So sometimes you kind of even forget what you started, why you started doing something together. Now see here, I had lined them up again. So I started off with them off-centered, then I somehow lined them up. I think so I had to fix a roof line. So now I'm going back in and kind of redrawing that roof and just making it spread out a little wider, so I didn't have that tangent of that roof in back lining up with the roof in front, because that just was not compositionally good. And then I made this little building over to the side a little bit taller, and the little ledge around it a little bit deeper, so that it would just give me a little bit of a contrasting shape that was not quite as high as the towers, but not quite as low as the other roof line. And a lot of this, once you start going, you kind of have to use your own judgment as far as composition and not look at the reference photo so much, and try to do your own thing. Now I'm using some acrylic markers. I'm using the brush tip Artex markers. These ones are really old, actually, because I wanted to use these up before I really get into. I have some other sets, but you kind of want to use oldest first in your studio so that things don't go bad. But surprisingly, these were still going pretty well, and I've had them for probably about 2 years, maybe more, honestly. This pack here, they're the cotton core ones, so you don't need to shake them up. They're ready to go as soon as you uncap them. I just store them on their side in a little rack that I made. I have a video on that too. I'll try to remember to link it, but I'll probably forget. But anyways, I use some Dollar Tree cosmetic organizers and glued them together to make a marker rack. But I do keep them on their side, and I do find they last pretty well. Eventually, they do kind of separate a little bit, I find, with the brush markers, and they will, you'll get some watery results. It's like the watery binder separates from the pigment and it does get a little bit less opaque. But so far so good. They were working pretty well for me, honestly, so I was quite impressed, honestly. I thought I might even use them and they might prove to not be good anymore and have to chuck them, but at least I would know. But they worked. They worked, so that was good. I'm adding a little bit of that in the water too. Now the acrylics, they're going to be a lot more permanent than the watercolor crayons as they dry down. If they dry on top of the crayons, you probably still could scrub it off if you wanted to. But if they dry on the acrylic surface underneath, without the watercolor crayon, they will be a little bit more permanent. Now, I thought it'd be fun to throw in some seagulls because this is so coastal, and I was just figuring they would be swooping around the cliffs and whatnot. So I put a few in. Seagulls are kind of one of these things where if you get them in and they have them effortlessly and just kind of leave them, they're usually fine. But the minute you start fussing with them, they go sideways real quick. And you almost have to put them in and then walk away, because if you look at them, you're going to be like, what the heck is that? What is that white shape in the sky? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it Superman? What the heck is that? You need to sketch it. You need to leave. You just need to back off. But of course, did I do that? No, I didn't do that. And then I scrubbed it out, and then I ended up scrubbing out all the watercolor crayon that was behind there. So now I have a big blob of background there because I've lost all the watercolor crayon, which I have to go back in and fill now. So this is basically what not to do, I think, at this point. But I think those are important too. So I did some different sizes. So we would have some that were closer to the viewer, some that were further back. I kind of like the idea of like a flock of seagulls, just kind of, swooping around, doing their seagull thing, and, making this coastal scene complete. This is a gray fine tip Copic acrylic marker. These are very much like the Copic fine tip, the Posca fine tip markers. They're a new release from Copic markers. They're kind of expensive for what they are, if I have to be completely honest. I like them more now that I've been using them for a while. At first, I was getting more feedback. They were kind of annoying, but they've held up quite well in storage, like in my little storage rack, because sometimes the pens just kind of crap out after a while. But they did hold up pretty well, and I'm able to grab them, and they're usually ready to go when I use them. So I guess I owe Copic an apology for my original assertions of that product, but I still think they're kind of high. They're kind of high for what they are. But anyway, I'm touching up the clouds with a little bit of brush tip acrylic pen, and you know what? All in all, it's not that bad. I was frustrated with it at first because I had such a great background that I really wanted to make the most of, and then I was upset with it. But now, looking back at the video, I don't think it's that bad. I like the colors. It's kind of fun. I like the patterns, and I did like those backgrounds, but, you got to experiment. If you're too afraid to work on your backgrounds, what's the point, right? Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this, and until next time, happy crafting. Bye!